Happy belated Mother's Day, everybody. My name is Jeremiah-Bannister.
And I am Joe Elder.
And you're listening to the greatest show, the broadcast, every single Monday from 10 to noon Eastern Time, right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Live call-in radio show. Look, you can give us a call, 616-656-1680 if you'd like to be part of the show. And you know, Joe, I have to be careful about that whole Eastern Time, Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, because apparently, man, if you put Eastern Standard, which is the standard for AP, like, I mean, if people read the newspapers, they're reading EST all the time. Associated Press uses that. And so, but every time I do it, when I talk about the show, hey, we're on 10 to noon Eastern Standard Time, there's always somebody. There always is somebody who's like, it's Eastern Daylight Time. You're going to confuse everybody. And we get into this big discussion over Eastern Daylight, Eastern Standard, Eastern Time. And I always say, look, you know, yes, -4, -5 hours. I get this. But go look it up on Google. What time is it Eastern Time? What time is it Eastern Standard Time? What time is it, Eastern Daylight Time? It's all the same time.
Yes.
It's just a different word for it.
Yes. I personally don't know why we put so much fuss into it, because the Earth is flat anyway, and there is no differences.
We know that it's
right?
flat. We know that it's flat. I was thinking about this on the way here.
How do we
Joe,
know it?
Because on the way when I was driving here, I didn't go in a big ball. I didn't see any kind of major curvature.
Yeah, I didn't see any curves when I was driving. Yes, isn't that always the simplistic view of it? No, but it does seem that people have a little bit of a problem differentiating between Eastern Daylight Time and Eastern Standard Time and everything. But yes, we do still have that wonderful Google machine that you can log into, check it out, and get those times. But yes, we are on 10 a.m. to 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in Grand Rapids, Michigan every Monday, and it's a wonderful time, and we have a bunch of wonderful topics.
And we've got an amazing guest, man.
We do.
And look, I feel badly. I know you feel badly. We did not get to promote this as much as we wanted to. But and I mean, this is just the real deal, folks. I mean, look, if you, to understand what goes into this program, we're busy people. I mean, we really are. We would love for you to reach out to us, in fact. If you would like to volunteer with our program, if you would like to be part of what we do and find out ways that you can better connect to this program and to help us to be even better than we are right now, make sure to email us at PaleoRadioshow@gmail.com. But we had some crazy stuff go on this week. Found out my uncle had a heart attack. That's not cool. He's 54 years old. So heart disease runs in the family on that side. That's not awesome at all. I had another friend go through some stuff, and won't go into any more detail than that, simply to say, look, everybody who listens to the show, just keep my friend in your thoughts. Yeah. I'm serious. I somebody I care about real deeply went through some stuff, has been going through some stuff, and, so it was a tough week on some different levels for us, but we have so many amazing subjects and so many amazing topics, and we have David Silverman from American Atheists on at 11 o'clock.
Yes, 11 a.m., David Silverman from American Atheists is going to be on, which is going to be great.
That's pretty stinking huge.
He's been on Fox News a few times, done a few rounds with some rabbis and priests,
With Bill O'Reilly.
With Bill O the Clown.
That's the waves
the late
come in,
Bill
waves
Riley.
come out. That's forever known. With that segment about, you don't know how it works. Waves come in, waves come out, that kind of thing. That conversation, that was with David Silverman.
Yes, and then he also had that same exact one with Richard Dawkins. Where Bill O'Reilly tends to double up on his arguments. But yeah, David Silverman's going to be on. It's going to be a great time. We're going to talk about the American Atheist. We're going to talk about his atheist activism, and it's going to be a really good time.
It's going to be tons of fun. We're also going to talk about the Comey crisis. That's going to be interesting.
Yes.
Not very often you see somebody fired by the president that's being investigated during the investigation. That's not common that you see.
Yeah, it's not very common. But at the same time, it's a really interesting article out of The Atlantic because it's breaking down, is this actually a constitutional crisis or is this a political crisis? Is this just a raised flags type thing? I really like that because it's kind of focusing on centering where everybody should be in terms of what's going on, right? Because we don't want people, it shouldn't be grab the pitchforks time. But there is definitely some interesting things
to make sure
afoot.
you got pitchforks in the house.
Yeah, make sure.
Yeah, make sure you
at least
got
check to make
pitchforks in the
sure
house.
pitchforks are in the house, and you've got some lighter fluid for the
you
torches.
can polish those bad boys up right now.
Exactly.
So we might get to this onion audio. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this straight audio. It's just so funny. We mentioned it last week, I think, talking about the Trump voter who changed his mind and now regrets it after he read 800 pages of feminist gender theory literature. And so 800 pages of it. And now he knows the language and he understands, and now he's changed.
And he understands why he's the problem. That's an interesting one. We're going to be talking about glaciers, specifically Glacier National Park, which I have been to. And this is very sad, but it says Glacier National Park is losing its glaciers with just about 26 of 150 left.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking a major meltdown going on in
of glacial
Montana and that area. So,
like for realsies, like massive. And it's kind of stunning. I mean, if people have never been there, and if they don't remember the images, if they can't just remember them off the top of their head, they should go and check them out. They should go and check out what stuff used to look like and kind of what it looks like now and say, wow, that's an interesting thing. It's kind of weird that things are changing in that direction while science is pointing toward
in a very rapid pace.
Yeah,
right?
at a very rapid pace. And so you've got the whole situation with the glaciers. We've got Dick Durbin.
Yeah.
He's talking about Afghanistan, and he said, when does it become a permanent occupation? That's a position, or it's an article over at The Hill. And, I mean, that's a great question.
Yes, it is.
I think it's already been one.
I think so, too. I think he's asking the right question, though, that says the minute it's kind of like The Godfather, the moment we're almost out, they pull us back in type deal. Mm. And I really think it's a question worth asking that says, at what point is this an absolute permanent occupation? And we're just going to say that we plan on staying here, Next, we're going to be talking about orcas, captive orcas and dolphins in France, and the idea of keeping them captive and breeding them is no longer going to be happening in France.
It's an interesting point. Scientology, that's another story. Scientology and Fatima and halal and kosher, they're all kind of religious topics.
Yeah.
Even though Scientology would like to pretend it's not a religion. But you sit there and you say, well, you find people who get, they're kind of kidnapped and tied up in a facility that's supposed to be helping them. That was done. That was found out recently. Some places were shut down. Fatima, the Pope, has indicated that if you lead a godless life, you may possibly go to hell.
No.
That seems to be, he's really gone hardline recently.
So hell's real now.
Again.
Oh, boy.
He's indicating that it's a possibility that if you're bad, that you may find yourself there. So, I mean, he still believes in it.
I can't believe a guy that believes in the afterlife and thinks he knows the answers to it would contradict himself.
You got that kosher and halal thing's interesting. Belgium votes to ban kosher and halal slaughter in its biggest territory. Fascinating thing, condemned, of course, by all of the Jewish groups as anti-Semitic, as being a threat to their religious liberty. It's an interesting discussion because there is a point to that, I think, and I don't want to go into too much, obviously, but I think there's a point a little bit to saying, man, that's a huge religious liberty issue. At the same time, so is prohibiting animal sacrifice. I mean, and so is prohibiting animal sacrifice according to your traditional methods, and then selling it as food in your store. That used to be what certain religions would do, and we don't permit that.
Yes.
And that would really cut to the heart, I guess, of idolatrous religions that do sacrifices to idols. That would seem to cut at the very heart of them definitionally. And so if we get into a position where somebody goes, look, the way that we kill our animals. Oh, that is a fire
seems
alarm.
Like a fire alarm here.
Yeah, so we have a fire alarm going off. We may want to have somebody go and just find out what's going on with that fire alarm. So if you hear that beep, beep, beep.
The wonders of live radio, right?
I know. Hey, Joe, we might have to just burst out of this window here.
Well, we love live radio enough to assume that unless we see smoke or fire that we're going to sit here and continue on.
Yeah, we're going to sit here. We're going to brave it out. We're going to brave out this entire thing. Oh. No, it's okay. Yeah, we have people coming in from the studio to make sure that everything's perfectly fine.
And
look
we're
at
safe.
that. Look at that.
Thank you
I
all.
have no idea what would cause that.
What an amazing response, though. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Three guys
it's
just burst in the room and solved this thing in 2 seconds.
I know,
it's
amazing. Look how quickly isn't it remarkable, in fact, that we're sitting here having a good time, joshing around, all of a sudden, beep, 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 we're terrified. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, this is like, is it a drill? Is there a fire? And all of a sudden, 3 guys come in.
Save the day.
And they were calm and collected.
Yes.
They just very smoothly just walked in. They knew what they were supposed to do. They go around and bam, they take care of it for us.
Wonderfully
Easy
done.
peasy. Yeah.
So
look at that. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.
so much.
Tip of the hat to you
big
both.
round of applause,
thank
actually.
You. Yes,
thank you for
take
saving
a
us.
bow.
Yeah, we appreciate it. 616-656-1680 if you'd like to join the fun.
So continuing on, as you were talking about banning kosher and halal slaughter in Belgium, and we will continue on this, but there's also kind of breaking it down, which is the practice of kosher and halal and how they slaughter the animal and if that's humane or not. The other topic we're going to be moving into is how we can thank medieval monks for the modern-day chicken.
Yes.
Tip of the hat to those monks.
And for a lot of beer and for St. Bernard's.
Yes.
You know, it's funny.
Quit hating on the monks.
Yeah, quit hating on the monks. I mean, hey, they ain't too shabby. You know, most of them are asexual.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. Most of them are asexual people with very little interest in any kind of physical affection or attention. These are people who, honest to goodness, want to live in solitude and isolation. Like, that's what they actually choose for their life. So they go out to these places and look, they end up making some pretty fascinating stuff.
They do.
They do. They make some decent beer. Obviously, you know, I mean, they've got their issues, obviously.
As
everyone does. You know, but look, it's the same thing. I think we can look at a lot of religions that way. Look at the Amish and look at the stuff that they make, the craftsmanship of the Amish.
Yes.
You know, the food and the cooking of the Mennonites. And I don't mean to, bum out any of the Methodists or Baptists on that score because I know they have some fantastic food. But,
yeah.
You know what they say? I don't want to get in trouble with all the luncheons and stuff, you know, and then be like, wow, you know, we make great food here at our potlucks. But, you know, the truth is these groups, they make good quality stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Decent stuff.
And if you go back and you look far enough, actually, we saw an image Angela showed me. She said if you go and see an image of the early St. Bernards before they were actually what we know now, dude, they look way different.
Oh, really?
Very few people would want to buy that dog.
I believe
it's kind of a ratty, in-the-face looking dog almost. It's an interesting thing, and the way that they bred the dog. And manipulated the forces of nature to make it look like Beethoven.
Yeah, to intelligently design it.
Yeah, to intelligently design it, right? With purpose and design. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing to see. We're going to talk about what they did with chickens. And I didn't know that. I knew they did stuff with beer. I know they did stuff with dogs. I did not know that they did stuff with chickens.
Almost single-handedly.
Yeah.
Almost single-handedly brought the chicken to the world. The other topic we're going to be talking about is how the EPA has removed half of its scientific board.
Yeah.
And has said that they're seeking industry-aligned replacements. So that's an interesting development. Not something that people that were worried about this didn't see coming, but something that's getting rolled out. We'll see
something that's getting rolled out, something that's definitely worthy of discussion. And when we get back, we're going to have a question of the day. And so you will not want to miss this. You will not want to turn the dial. Believe me, we have an action-packed show for you. And again, as a reminder, going over what we just said, is that we will be having David Silverman. He's going to be on the program from American Atheists. He's going to be on PaleoRadio, gracing us with his fantastical presence from 11 to 11:30. And so make sure, give us a call, 616-656-1680. If at any point you would like to be part of the conversation. But, man, this past week, Joe, has been just a lot of fun. It's been real busy. I don't know what you've been up to. I know this weekend you got to spend some time going up with your family.
Yeah, in the past week, I've been back in my hometown twice. I went to see my nephew for his 4-year-old birthday, his 4th birthday, which was a lot of fun. And then yesterday, I was hiking in the woods, and the day before that, I was up for Mother's Day with my family. So we went to a bonfire on Saturday night, and then Sunday I went hiking at a place about a half hour north of Grand Rapids called Hardy Dam, which is a pretty fun little spot. And something that I do a lot. I like to get out in the woods. I like to get out there and kind of unplug and get away from a lot of things. That's a way of relaxing for me. Got to see my mom, which was a lot of fun on Saturday night.
Yep. Big shout out to all the mothers out there. I feel badly because I hosted yesterday Cafe Inquiry. I do that on the second and fourth Sundays of the month. We had nearly 30 people, and I did not make the announcement for Mother's Day.
Oh.
I am a complete jerk, 100%. So, all right. Hey, happy Mother's Day to everybody. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Love Paleo Radio? Join the club. Support our work by visiting patreon.com/Paleo Radio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio, live in studio on this wonderful Monday morning. Again, we are the greatest show that airs here in studio at WPRR. I have to be very specific here.
Yeah.
The greatest show that airs at WPRR from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Mondays only. Mm-hmm. But yes, thank you guys for joining us. If you want to call in and join the conversation, you can do that. The number is 616-656-1680.
Yeah, we love those phone calls. We love the conversation.
Yes, we do.
And look, it definitely helps. I mean, we've mentioned listeners of the show. Of course, they know that we are big fans of the Theracane and the Backjoy.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Those are things. We are not sponsored by them. There's no money involved in this statement. Okay, there's no call to action either. We're not telling anybody to do anything. Just simply saying, look, this has really helped us to stay relaxed. And it's especially important today because today is my 21st day, Joe, with no nicotine or vaping.
Yes, 21 days.
21 days.
21 days to make a habit, man, or 21 times.
I tell ya,
Look at you go.
It's one of these things, man, where it's been, it's been a ride. I've had to just try to be as active as I can. I'm actually eating really healthy right now, really healthily. I'm doing a lot of exercising right now, doing a lot of walking, and I'm doing a lot of creation of things. I'm making a lot of videos right now. In fact, people, if they go online, I'm making videos probably
pretty much almost every day.
Yeah, about 4 days, about 4 videos a week people will be able to get. And they're really short, and they're nothing like, you're not, so far I haven't been publishing anything that's like a diatribe or any kind of, except for when I got mad at Mark Zuckerberg. But the thing is, it helps. It helps to keep my hands active. And here's the thing I kind of thought about it. I was telling my mom, I said, it's really weird because I guess I never realized just how much time I spent with my hands occupied by vaping.
Yeah.
And how much I was doing that throughout the day to where if I was on a video, I'm vaping. If I'm on a picture, I'm vaping. If I'm on the radio, and our listeners know this. Our listeners know for a fact. If they go back and listen, they can hear, and they probably all heard it, me vaping a bazillion times. I'm a chain vapor. And Joe knows it. Joe knows it better than anybody almost. He's seen me and how often I'm constantly reaching for that thing. Basically, if I'm not talking, I'm vaping. And so it's emotional. It's a ride, but I'm excited about it. And I'm more productive than I've been in a long time, since the last time I was not smoking.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, I feel great. I
good.
feel productive. And so, yeah, I encourage people, go check out. They're fun. They're short. They're little. They're not about a cause or a mission. They're just fun, and it's entertainment. So go check it out. It's at my Facebook, and that's jeremiah-bannister or the Paleocrat, and you can see those videos, and you can follow.
Right.
You can follow me trying to quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a fun time. A lot of fun videos. One thing that's not fun, U.S. National Park, the Glacier National Park, is losing its glaciers.
It sucks.
It's just going to be a national park.
It's lame.
It's very lame.
Yes.
So this is from The Guardian. It says, warming climate makes it inevitable that contiguous U.S. will lose all of its glaciers within decades, according to scientists. Mm-hmm. It's now inevitable that the contiguous United States will lose all of its glaciers, it says, according to scientists who have revealed that the precipitous shrinkage of dozens of glaciers in Montana have occurred. Warming temperatures have rapidly reduced the size of 39 named glaciers in Montana since 1966, and this is according to comparisons released by the U.S. Geological Survey in Portland State University. So that's really sad. So we're seeing the rapid reduction of 39 named glaciers at least. Some have lost as much as 85% of their expanse over the past 50 years, with Glacier National Park, the site of 37 of these surveyed glaciers, set to lose all of its ice formations within the next few decades. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's eponymous ice formations.
Man, if people have a problem denying climate change, What would they have to say about something?
They'd have to come up with an alternative
like
explanation for how that happened.
Yeah, how?
I mean, it would just
yes.
I mean, I hear it all the time, and I think it's kind of weird. You're hearing a lot more people who say, "Well, I think climate change. I don't believe it all the way, but I do believe the climate's changing." You're hearing that a lot more, and you're hearing a lot that say, "Well, the real problem, are the animals," but they're not connecting. Like, okay, if you want to blame it on the cows. Why are there so many freaking cows?
Yeah, it's almost like there's another species directing how many cows are around.
Yeah, it's like the person sitting there mounding down, a quadruple baconator and going, I don't understand why there's so much beef.
Exactly right.
Why is all the poop and fart stuff going in the sky?
Well, and I know that people that are climate change deniers have come up before and made those points where they'll say things like, well, what about cow farts, right? And they kind of make it like a joke. And I'd look them right in the face and say, scientifically, when you're talking about methane, yeah, it's a dumb idea to have this many cows around. And yes, it's not very good for you to be eating 4 pounds of red meat in a week. Sorry, folks.
So it's actually wrong. It's actually on numerous levels, their joke just smacks them in the face.
It's really saying, what does happen if I drink a lot of sugary drinks? What does that have to do with getting fat? There's no connection between sugar and weight.
Yeah, I've heard it.
I've heard it. Same type of argument.
Man, I've heard people. I mean this. I've heard people that just think that their weight has nothing to do with their ability to walk around, their ability to run around, or to
Absolutely
feel.
Not.
They're like, I'm in a good spot. No, you're not.
Yes.
You're totally not. Like, it's obvious that your center of gravity
Yes.
Okay, there's a reason your lower back hurts, man. With those banana orangutan boobs you got.
And that feeling of not wanting to get up and go and move around, a lot of that, in a lot of cases, has to do with the diet itself. Now, we're not being dismissive. I'm not trying to be dismissive of people that have genetic predispositions to obesity or anything like that. I'm only making the point of people that are denying the connections that we know medically about things like sugar and red meat to your diet is the same as people saying things like CO2 doesn't have anything to do with climate change. No. And that we don't actually understand the processes of CO2 emissions well enough to make this correlation. The last thing I want to say that I think is really important is I don't think we're running into climate change deniers as often now. We're hitting the second phase of acceptance, where I've been saying this for a long time. The phase always goes, climate change isn't real, or the item is not real. I don't believe in it. The next step is, it's real, but it's been this way forever. There's no way you can change it. Then the next is, maybe there's something we can do to change it, but it's going to be too expensive. And then the very next step is, I told you we should have been changing it all along. And where we're at right now with climate change is we're on step 2. We're on the climate's been changing for years. It's always ebbed and flowed, and we have no control over that. And that's being dismissive of the rate at which climate change has occurred, the rate at which CO2 has come into our atmosphere. That rate has jumped faster than we've ever seen. But people aren't denying that the climate's changing anymore. What they're saying is that it's an inevitable fact that it happens all the time. We can't control it. So
and
we're
looking
at
nature, right? And that's the whole thing about starting with your answer. I mean, that's what happens. You start with your answer. Nope, can't be that. And then you say, well, that would really cut into the stuff that I love.
Yes.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine that scientifically doing the right thing to fix a problem requires some discipline.
Yes.
That's actually a weird concept, isn't it? I mean, boy, goodness gracious alive. But, I mean, you hear that kind of thing all the time.
You absolutely do. And that's the thing is when faced with hard facts, that's when people really squirm. Here's a few of them. Of the 150 glaciers that existed in the park in the late 19th century, only 26 remain. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about Glacier National Park in Montana, having only 26 of its 150 glaciers left over. This is Daniel Farge, who is the USGS. Again, that's the U.S. Geological Survey. He's a scientist for them. He says, quote, "It's inevitable that we lose them all over the next few decades. The Colorado glaciers started melting before Montana's, and while there are large glaciers in the Pacific Northwest that will hold on longer, the number is vanishing. The number of vanishing glaciers will steadily grow until none are left." And that's an undeniable fact. We're running out of time in terms of what's happening and changing in our planet. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, we're already over 400 parts per million. The damage is coming. there's a lot of stuff we could start fixing now, and we still have a lot of bad coming our way.
You know, when you start with your answers and you say, I know people who have seen, for example, there was a film at the planetarium here in Grand Rapids at the public library. There was a film about ice, okay, and the importance of ice in our universe. That was all believed. I went with a number of people who watched it with me, and I knew of their beliefs on certain issues. And I knew that, well, when we're talking about the universe and we're talking stars and planets, they're going to use references of time that a lot of these individuals don't believe. They're young Earth creationist people. And so they agree with the ice. They understand that, well, yeah, we need the ice. We need the cool stuff. We need that. They get it. But then all of a sudden it comes to a point where it uses increments of millions or billions, and all of a sudden it's way out the wheelhouse of the 6,000 to 10,000 years that their Bible admits. And so what ends up happening? All that other stuff is just ignored. It's almost like they're watching a Hanna-Barbera cartoon or something. Like it doesn't have any more import at that point because they just say, oh, well, this person obviously believes in the Big Bang Theory. And so it's as if all of the stuff about ice, all the stuff about warming and what it's doing to our planet and the role of ice in our lives and in our planet, that all of that's just gone, that they completely forget. It's like they just, I don't need to worry about that anymore. And so then they go and they have conversations where on the one hand, they know that it's true, but they know that it also bumps directly with some of these dogmatic core beliefs that they start with, and then they go looking around to try to find answers because they believe in their hearts sincerely that if it's true what they say about dogma, then, and it's true about God and how God's going to take care of this no matter what we do type thing, then if we just go out in nature, we're going to find it.
That's right.
But they're not finding it.
Yes. And I think that there's multiple reasons why people hold those beliefs and keep those beliefs, but a major one right now is just the simple fact of there's not much trust in expert analysis or opinion across the board of anything. And so even in the realms of science where people are predisposed to be looking at the evidence first, and I'm not saying that all scientists, I mean, they're not angels. There are scientists that dupe their numbers. There's scientists that play the game. There's scientists that have already answers and try to get them. The difference is the peer-reviewed process is a way of sorting out who's trying to play the game and who's not and getting those answers. But people don't respect those processes, and they don't respect expert opinion anymore. They don't really think that experts know what they're talking about, and they don't think they have an in-depth knowledge of a subject better than they do at face value because they can Google it.
Well, and look, it all kind of depends on that. I mean, look, I'm skeptical of people who are experts on religious claims. But that's only because I say, well, what exactly are you an expert of? How do you come to conclusions? What do you qualify? What is the whole method? What's the process? And you say, is it the exact same with people in committees in Washington, D.C. who are politicians? Do they use that same scientific methodology and formulation as people in science? But with science, you can't really go against it. Like, what do you got? Nothing.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
Sorry for getting discombobulated. It totally happens every once in a while. But goodness gracious, we're here, PaleoRadio, every Monday from 10 to noon Eastern Time. We're going to make that easy. Because we do have an international audience of people.
Yes, we do.
And internationally, and even nationally, it seems like people get awfully confused by Eastern Standard. Because we have that whole confusing daylight savings time where we go back and forth. And sometimes you lose time, sometimes you gain it, and it's no good. But speaking of something that's totally awesome, the opposite of no good, is the caller that we have on the line. If you'd like to join us, 616-656-1680. We're going right now to Kalamazoo. He's listening on the phone app. It's Ronnie. Thank you for calling Paleo Radio Show, Ronnie.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. So I decided I wasn't going to call today, but then you guys started talking about climate change. I unfortunately will say that I've been called a climate denier on the basis of I believe that I've seen enough, quite a few different documentaries on both sides of the argument. But what I've found is both sides generally agree that there isn't enough data overall, because both sides can manipulate the current data and show their results.
Do you think that the side that's argued for the fact that glaciers would be melting and they've melted at this point have more of a heavy hand than the ones that say it's not happening? Because they have to have an alternative explanation for why 150 glaciers were here 50 years ago and only 26 are in Montana right now.
Okay, I have a counter question then. They say that climatologists that study the extreme warm period of the Renaissance period also say that there was grape growing in Iceland at that same time.
Yes.
The Vikings, so...
Yeah, it did. Like right now,
then and now?
Right now in Antarctica, a lot of people will tell you, look at how much ice is forming in Antarctica. It's getting bigger, and they're right. But guess where it's melting? Greenland. We have 2 major ice sheets, Ronnie. 3 actually, but of the 3, one of them has been thinning and gaining in expanse, but the other one's just straight up melting, dropping it from on top of the land into the water. And again, the people that are saying this is not happening, there's no evidence, have to have an explanation for the physical viewing of knowing that that's falling. I
just don't think man is causing as much as we believe, because look, the whole idea of man creating climate change or being the major factor, and that's the key thing, is I don't believe that man is a major factor. I believe that it's happening. I don't think it's man making the major factor, because everything I've seen is saying that, it's the carbon monoxide or the carbon that we've been kicking up since the Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. Well, that's only like 40 years ago, roughly now.
Yeah.
So, and everything I've been seeing is the scientists don't have enough data, because we're only going back 140 years of trying to figure out this carbon issue.
No. Have you ever heard of carbon coring, Ronnie? Do you know what carbon coring is?
But hold on. But did you know that they did find they all agree, all scientists, all the different scientists on both sides agree that carbon does have effect, but there's an 800-year delay that they found in the ice cores. Did you hear that? That's just recently come out. So the ice cores that they're studying, they just had a major issue up in Canada where they're studying them. A large portion of them, the freezer broke down. Lost a whole bunch.
Yes. When I'm talking about ice coring, what I'm talking about in carbon coring is scientists have these long rods that have a hole in them. They're like a big pipe. And they take them and core them into the ice, right? And they get measurements, just like someone at the bottom of the Grand Canyon can look up and see the different geological levels. They can measure how much carbon was in the air that's trapped inside of the ice in different levels of the glaciers. And you're right that they've seen rises and lowers. You're right that we've seen them high and low, and we've seen them adjust. But the difference, Ronnie, is that we haven't seen them adjust this quickly in a rapid rate that's outside of the norm, the natural occurrence and synchronization. So the question is why? The only thing that we know or can think of that would have raised that up right now is anthropological climate change, human-induced climate change through CO2 emissions. That's a reasonable explanation to why we're seeing it rise.
And I need to say this. I mean, look, I watch InfoWars probably more than anybody I personally know. I actually do. I watch it. I monitor these things. I document things. I follow to see what stories they're saying are true or not, and all of this. And look, they talk about, that's kind of the hub. That's the central station for any group or person or popular figure that would be saying, hey, I think that this is a phony baloney answer for why we're seeing all of this stuff. Here's the problem. You see the same couple people on there all the time.
Same ones.
The same ones. And there's a reason for this. The reason is because there's not a lot of them. So whenever a conversation happens where people are talking about this and they say, well, all of the people agree, that's not really true. For one, that's just not true.
It's never true.
That's not at all. But more importantly is that, you say, where are the institutions? Where are the journals? where are all the other things that show, that are physical fruit, right? Evidences that people surrounding can say, oh, there's a lot of people that maintain that position. There's a lot of people that hold to this in the scientific community. You're not at a loss to go online and find scientists in scientific communities online and all over the place that believe in climate change. You can't find hardly anyone, hardly anybody. You can't find hardly any group online. Where do you go find them? Where you have a whole bunch of scientists, a respectable amount that if you talk about them compared to the ones who aren't in those clubs or the people who are in clubs that oppose those clubs, that to treat them like they're like kind of on par with each other is a joke. Well, I'm sorry. It's not real. It's fake.
Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, my biggest thing is the first thing I have two last little things I'll bring up about how I feel about this, or what I found about this, is the top guy that studies climate was part of that international governmental whatever program. He left because he disagreed. The top guy that studies all this left because they were too democratic about the subject, because it's a government group that is deciding these things. And the second one is the famous thing about, 97% of scientists agree. Like, where's this list of those 97 scientists? You don't find
97%.
It's actually based on a study of all. It's based on a study of all the research papers that involve climate change.
Do you watch Louder with Crowder? Do you watch Louder with Crowder? Because he has and I don't mean to cut you off. We got to get going here. We have Louder with Crowder. He did a thing where he talks about climate myths, and that was, in his opinion, climate myths. And a couple of the ones that you mentioned, including the most recent one that you just said. And there was a guy, and we need to share this, Joe.
We do.
We wanted to bring this guy on. He's a scientist who had no idea. He's from Australia. He had no clue who Steven Crowder was. He'd never heard of Louder with Crowder. And all of his listeners, or all of his supporters on YouTube were like, look, you're a real scientist. This is what you talk about. Here's this guy, and here's what he talks about. We need to post this because I think it would, honest to goodness, settle a lot of these scores. And I would say, look, after watching that video, I would say the burden of proof really is on the people that on the side of saying that it's not man-made. They'd be on that side to say you really at that point do have the burden of proof. At that point, when you have scientists breaking it down and saying, look, this is kind of a joke. I mean, yes, you're right about the 97% thing, but then if you limit it to just people involved in climate stuff, I mean, it's unanimous. You're talking massive numbers.
But no,
it makes it even more.
Though. But it's not unanimous, and it shouldn't be unanimous. You can't go by that because science isn't democratic. It's truth and by study.
Well,
and if the top guy is saying that it's hogwash,
there is no top guy.
Man is not the biggest contributor. That's all I'm saying, and that's all the top the world-renowned guy that everybody says is the top guy of climate change.
What's his name?
When he says it, I can't remember his name right.
I'm having a hard time giving you credibility if you don't even know his name, Ronnie.
I'll send it to you.
That's fair.
Because he actually did an interview.
But the point that you brought up a good point. It's not about opinion, right? And when they're doing this, 97% of scientists agree. They're not saying they agree like you said, hey, have you never looked at this and do you agree? You're asking the scientists that have actually run the studies what they think. So factor that into that statement that you're thinking of is this 97% are people that have been doing the studies, that have looked into it, that are saying this is what I believe based upon the studies, not just that they're
just remember 99% of the scientists said the world was flat, and only one person was saying it was round. So,
and
it's not. I think it's too early. That's the thing.
But if we're going with evidence,
it's still too early because they don't have enough science behind the numbers yet. Because they haven't collected enough data. That's what I think.
Thank you so much for that phone call, Ronnie.
You. I think 26 glaciers left is enough. That's enough evidence.
Listen, I mean, that needs to be underlined with exclamation points.
Absolutely.
And I mean, look, people heard a number of arguments that we hear a lot. I mean, humans aren't part of this. It's too early to know. All these different things. Well, the conspiracy about, they've made the numbers not real, or, when they talk about the 97% is not really because they include all these other things. Again, that's a lot of everyday people saying, well, here's where I think the propagating of the message in the public sphere and on media, right, by the media, right, that's the way it is, that kind of somehow makes null and void all of the actual findings that people have and that they've come to and that are confirmed. And listen, it's true. Truth is not by consensus. It's totally true. Consensus in the past has believed things that are nuts. The question is, what is the consensus over? What is the standard they're using?
Yes.
To what degree are they able to validate? What are the different things that they've done and studies that they've done and controls that they put in place in order to give them indicators?
If a scientist, and this is what scientists do, they make a living on proving other theories of other scientists wrong. If a scientist was able to prove that climate change was false or there wasn't enough evidence and had an alternative theory that did work and worked in a better way, he'd win the Nobel Prize. That's how science works. They bend to the evidence that's there. The thing is, that person has never come forward and that evidence has not shown up. 616-656-1680 to stick around, folks.
For debates, interviews, or speeches, contact PaleoRadio at gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
We got a message, gotta say this, from our last caller. In fact, we got another caller who's calling in response to the last caller. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, Ronnie, for that. We definitely appreciate it. But Ronnie reached out to us, and he said the last statement before you went to break just now is not true. You will not win the Nobel Prize if you disprove climate change. Too much money in climate change. And here's where it gets me. Again, this is the thing, is you say, man, can you show me the study that did disprove it? Can you show me how it toppled it once and for all? That's the problem with anything. Chiropractic, any of these kind of conspiratorial woo-woo-y type things where you start with the answer first. Mm-hmm. You start with your answer, then you go looking for stuff. Because that's exactly what this is. That's why they can only find negative things to say about the people who are actually looking into it to find out what the crap's going on.
Yes. And I think the interesting thing is, with the idea of too much money being in climate change, it really does strike me that people's opposition to these facts are political and have nothing to do with science. So my only request is step outside of the argument being scientific. You're in faulty ground that you can't stand on. You don't have the legs for it. Step into the ground of saying, I politically disagree with our way of solving climate change. I don't like the Paris Agreement because I think it's New World Order type stuff. That's what the conversation I'd rather have. Let's just be honest. Because to be frank, and I'm not meaning to be facetious, but I'm not very confident in the level of scientific understanding that the people that hold these views have. I'm very confident in their level of understanding of political opposition to things that are pretty much anti-nationalist, and the idea of having a carbon tax on everyone that's run from a Paris Agreement seems pretty anti-nationalistic to them, and they don't like the proposed solutions to the problem rather than the problem. So we're having an argument about, is the problem real or not, when, let's just be honest, we know that it's a fact. No. Just say that you don't like the Paris Agreement, you don't like the idea that America needs to get involved with other nations, and you don't like the idea of a carbon tax. Fine. But that's a different conversation than really, truly trying to challenge the science.
You know, you and I both, we spend a lot of time in a community of people that believe in science.
Yes,
right?
we do.
And who do scientific work. Look, I'm actually friends with real scientists.
Yes, people that actually
Joe's
do
friends
this work.
With real scientists. We are friends with people who actually do real scientific work. And these people, I mean, look, maybe they're part of it too. You know, maybe they're part of the conspiracy, but they really genuinely believe that the evidence that they're looking at and understanding that they went to school to understand that that's what it comes to. All right, Look, we got another caller. With no further ado, listen on AM 1680. It's Brian calling from GR. Welcome to Paleo Radio, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to say I am so sick of this argument that people used to think, well, they say scientists used to think the world was flat.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't.
Thank you.
Scientists proved before Christ that the world was round. The Greeks did it back in about 2000 B.C.
Yes, they did.
Christians then burned the library at Alexandria and suppressed the knowledge for 1,500 years.
Yes, great point. Thank you.
So
Thank you very
scientists
much,
actually
Brian.
were the ones,
But the overall argument, too, and let's just expand on it further. And this, let me say this, too. This isn't to say I don't want to be going after Ronnie. I think Ronnie was a very brave man to call in and tell us his opinions on it. I'm talking about
We want that, too.
I want the
We want
argument.
that.
We're talking
Yes.
about the arguments here, right? Not Ronnie. I'm only saying this to be very specific because I think he's a genuinely good guy.
Yeah, and I just have heard that argument from way too many people.
Yes.
And it's just so ridiculous.
Yes. And also, Brian, what do you think about the idea of people overall and with the argument to science will say things to the tune of, well, before we did things like bloodletting, so ergo, we don't need to believe anything that science says right now. You know, I think that that's such a leap of the point that they're trying to make is say that nothing that's held as true now would be true later, and that's just simply not true. That statement can't be true. That's not how it works.
Everything in science builds on everything else.
That's right.
You know, so yes, we didn't know much about medicine when we first started studying it. Guess what? We know a lot more now.
Yes,
And I don't want to judge people who back then had no tools that would give them any indication that the sun did not rise. For real, like that. I mean, how were they to know this? I mean, we're great apes for crying out loud, and you know, you sit there and say, very very old people trying way back in the day saying, look, I'm going to try to figure out the Earth a little bit better, find out my place in the world. For them to say, look, the sun rises and goes down, and this is how it works, totally unsurprising. But when data comes out and people start thinking of more clever questions, and then, I mean, look, we didn't even need the technology to go outside of our planet in order to see, right?
Yeah.
We didn't even need that. We just had some clever questions and some really great experiments that could be replicated and duplicated all over the place to prove it and to give us a well-rounded picture of what we are in the universe.
Then there's one other thing that drives me nuts, and that's the suggestion that, okay, maybe there is an argument. Maybe there is, you know, some question about whether climate change is existing. Look at the downside of each side is wrong. You know, if the people who say climate change is happening are incorrect, the worst that happens is we make the world a better place for no good reason.
That's right. Yeah, we at least aren't running and pushing oil and gas and basically unrefined oils through pipes underneath our water sources anymore. I mean, yeah, wouldn't that be awful? Even if it was for no reason,
yeah,
we've improved it.
Yeah, it's Brian's version of Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
It seems like, hey, look, what's the worst? You have a choice. If I'm wrong, you know, we cut into stuff in different ways. If we're right and you're wrong, boy, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of your own take on Pascal's wager there, Brian.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. You
All
guys have a
right.
good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brian.
We
Appreciate
appreciate
the
that call. Yes.
Well, we got about 6 minutes. What can we get into? You want to talk about monks and chickens?
Well, we need to talk about monks and chickens, and we need to talk about this whole Fatima thing, man. I mean,
that's right. Yeah,
this is
let's
worrying
do
me. The Pope, for a while, seemed like he was laying the yellow brick road for atheists and gay people to make it to the pearly gates, and it seems like he's kind of putting up a couple warning signs.
Turning a new leaf.
Yeah, he's turning a new leaf. Leading a godless life might lead you to hell. It might. The Pope warns this in Fatima. This is over by cruxnow.com. We've never cited this before, but it's an interesting thing. This is their Vatican correspondent speaking in Fatima, Portugal, where the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared 100 years ago and offered secrets and revelations to 3 shepherd children, 2 of whom were declared saints on Saturday. Pope Francis warned 500,000 people not to lead a life that profanes God, because doing so puts one on the path to hell.
Yes. He said, Our Lady foretold and warned us about a way of life that is godless and indeed profanes God and his creatures. Such a life, frequently proposed and imposed, risks leading to hell.
Listen to how qualified that is.
Yes.
That's like the most qualified papal remark I've ever heard.
Now, don't forget, guys, he's a special person that has special powers more than you and I to reason. So we should take this seriously.
You know, and look, the guy's very well educated, even if we take out the woo. He's a well-educated guy. He's traveled all over the world. He's met a lot of people, and he still harbors a lot of crazy ideas. But, you look at it and you say, it's kind of an interesting thing because in the history of popes, this guy's like way out.
Radical.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, he is. When I was a Catholic, I became very suspicious of the popes and the Vatican II conciliar church because of the changes that were made and just how dramatic of a departure. A lot of them were from even 1950s, right, Catholicism. And a lot of the people who are alive now are older and used to be Catholic, and when they talk about it, I remember when I was a kid, boy, I was real serious.
Yep.
Boy, they took religion.
Slapping to the rulers.
Yeah,
stuff,
big
right?
time, and how it changed, and it became a lot more loosey-goosey.
A lot more loosey-goosey.
And so, I got tired of that stuff, and I was like, this is nuts. I'm like, I'm going to, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if these popes are promoting things that are good. And I had a lot of people back then who told me, look, John Paul II, Pope Benedict, these guys, they're saying things and doing things that are a little bit different, but not really within the official capacity of a pope. And they're really not going too far outside the lines. It's at least debatable. I don't think it's even debatable anymore.
No.
This guy's just so far over the lines. That they look at it like crumbs from a table when they say, look, they're in Fatima, in Portugal, on the 100th year anniversary of the single most popular modern event
in Catholicism,
right?
Yeah.
Most popular thing. And the best that he does is to say, you shouldn't do this because you might risk the possibility of not going to the pearly gates.
Yes. Well,
and I say, wow, hey, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm grateful, I guess, that you believe stuff like that. On the other hand, I shake my head and I'm baffled for how a lot of my Catholic friends, how they just keep whistling as they go and don't factor this in and go, man, if it was debatable before, we're really in trouble now.
Yeah, and this is actually him pulling back from where he used to be, he used to say, was it not even a year or two ago when he said something like atheists can get into heaven and some of those obscure remarks, right? But he did talk about
all
that.
ambiguous.
And then he also said that being an atheist is more truthful or honest than being a person who believes in God but doesn't practice the faith very well. I mean, he said some very outlandish things, but I think the most important thing is to tell people or have people know that the position of being a pope is a political one. And when he first started, he was radically left and simple. And I think globally things have changed in a way that has changed his position. I mean, he's a global figure, right. And he was in a safer place to make more radical propositions 5 years ago than he is now, or 3 or 4 years ago.
Speaking of people in positions to make radical propositions, David Silverman.
Yes, he's going to be up at the top of the hour. It's going to be great.
Oh, my goodness, bro.
I'm excited.
This is going to be nuts.
You guys should be excited, too. Stick around, folks.
Yeah, because literally on the other side of this 2-minute break is going to be David Silverman of American Atheists.
Yeah, and we're going to have a good time. We're going to be talking about atheist activism. We're going to be talking about Reason Rally. We'll be talking about a bunch of different things.
Bunch of stuff. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. And make sure to give us a call, 616-656-1680. If you'd like to be part of the show, we won't be fielding new calls until 11:30. Again, 616-656-1680. We'll be right back with more Paleo Radio right after this.
You are now entering Paleo Radio.
Welcome to Paleo Radio with your hosts, Jeremiah-Bannister and Joe Elder.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio, live in studio. We are at the top of our second hour here on this beautiful Monday, May 15th. Joe Elder, along with Jeremiah-Bannister.
Mm-hmm. Top of the game, bro.
Wonderful time.
Top of the day, top of the game. We're doing really good. With everything going on with this show, we're making tons of huge moves, a bunch of magnificent decisions going on in a series, in fact. There's like a sequence of brilliant decisions being made, and fantastic connections. And so we're really excited to have this guy on. Listen, this individual is a big name, okay? Everybody listening to our show probably knows him by name. And I had the privilege of being an individual to witness my daughter, Samantha, before she died of brain cancer back in July of last year, having the privilege of witnessing her getting to meet this man and, in fact, getting to hug him and giving him one of her very prized two-armed hugs. And so I'm super pumped to be introducing here David Silverman of American Atheists. David Silverman, welcome to PaleoRadio.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Jeremiah. Good to hear from you again.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so excited. I just even reaching out to you and saying, hey, look, what does it take to get you on? Your willingness to just really quickly say, look, I'll be on your show. So we're pumped that you took the time out of your busy life to do this for us, and so we're really excited to have you.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here, and I'll just start out by mentioning that, when you and I first met, when Samantha threw her arms around my neck, I will say that, I'm very proud of the Reason Rally personally. I'm very proud that it happened twice, and I'm very, it's a source of big personal pride for me, and one of my favorite memories of Reason Rally 2 is definitely, for sure, Samantha throwing her arms around me and giving me that big hug at that outside that evening event. I think about it; it still brings tears to my eyes. She was just so warm and so happy. I was emotional about it, and I'm really glad to have had that experience. I'm really glad to have met Samantha, and I'm really happy to do your show.
Well, for those who need a more formal introduction for this guy, listen. Fantastic individual, David Silverman. He's the president of American Atheists. He was the creator and executive producer of the 2012 Reason Rally. He earned his bachelor's degree in computer science and his MBA in marketing from Penn State, in fact, and his CAGS. Is it just CAGS? Is that how you would just
pronounce it? Yeah, that's what they call it, yeah.
And his CAGS in international business. Look at that, from Seton Hall. Love it. Dave served as a professional inventor at Bell Labs for 8 years, 74 issued patents, and marketing director for Natural Microsystems. He's appeared on most major news programs, including The O'Reilly Factor, which spawned the famous WTF meme face, which is hilarious. Absolutely genius. The Real Story with Gretchen Carlson, and a whole bunch of others, including Scarborough and Paul Lazan and others. And so we're super excited to have you and to talk with you about some stuff going on. We seem like we're at an interesting place in American history, presidentially, it seems, even congressionally. And so to have people like you and institutions like American Atheists doing what you guys do is just, it's so, we need you. we need what you do.
I will say that the job has changed since November. The content has changed. The mentality has changed. The feel has changed. It's gotten more dangerous. We've gotten a lot of death threats, a lot more threats, but also there's a sense of urgency now. I've been an activist. This is my 21st year as an activist, and so I was an activist through the W. Bush years, and I was at least aware of the movements in the Bush 1 years, but it's worse now. And when we look at Donald Trump and what he's doing, and I'm not a partisan guy, okay? I am not a person who says all Republicans are bad and all Democrats are good. I have in my life voted Republican, and I don't feel guilty for the time that I voted Republican because the person I voted Republican for was pro-choice and pro-separation of church and state at the time. So I'm not bashing Republicans here. What I am saying is that Donald Trump's doing some really bad stuff. And he's doing some really dangerous stuff. And he's doing things that are going to cause moderate-term damage. And I don't say long-term damage because long-term we are still going to win. Long-term, the atheist movement is still going to win. Long-term, the government will secularize. I stand by that statement. But my goodness, we took a step back. And so what we're doing right now at American Atheists is not only fighting things like the repeal of the Johnson Amendment, things like creationism in the textbooks, and Betsy DeVos's insane idea that God needs to be pushed in the classrooms, but also the horribly wrong and destructive idea that we are done, that we have failed, that we are out. One of the big problems that we're seeing right now is people fleeing the movement, people giving up, people saying, all right, well, we had 8 years of Obama, and they came in maybe during the Obama years, and they said, all right, well, we've had 8 years of Obama, and it was good, and we made progress, and now we've gotten kicked in the gut, and now we've got a president who is fostering religion so that, I mean, he's fostering religion fakely so that he can protect his other agenda items. I think everybody knows that and everybody can see that. Donald Trump is very likely an atheist who is using religion for his own personal gain and to gain political power so that he can, be a corrupt president.
Absolutely.
I hate to say it, but that's what he's doing. And so many people in our movement are saying, well, I give up. I'm going to go to this other movement. I'm going to leave. Oh, it reminds me of Droopy Dog. Do you remember? It was a Droopy Dog.
Exactly, Droopy Dog.
Yes, we know.
It'll never work. It'll never work.
No.
And we get that. I've been getting that so much. So the number one thing that I'm telling people is that, Bush was bad too. And we didn't run from Bush. And we're not running from Trump. And Trump is doing bad things, and if and when he gets impeached, Pence will do the same bad things. And that's bad. And I think we have to understand that this is going to be a rough 4 years, understand that we are taking steps back, understand that we have to dig our heels in and fight harder, and understand that we still will win this. We still can and will win this. But we have been, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Obama was 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
Trump is going to be maybe 2 steps back. But
go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
But it's not something that we can't win. It's not something that we won't win. And I think that one of the things that we need to do, it's funny, Jeremiah, because you just say, so, Dave, how are you? And then I just keep talking.
No, you're perfectly
hey,
fine.
We got
actually,
2 segments.
Yeah, we got 2 segments. And look, it's our first time talking to you. And we're very interested in what you have to say. And on our notes that we have to talk to you about are things like the Johnson Amendment. We want to talk about the things that are most contemporary and pressing for American atheists. And so, no, you're our guest, and we're very interested in having you talk. So, yeah.
I think one of the things that we need to do is start shaming people who don't vote. I think it has to. I think we have to go there. I think we have to talk about that. I think atheists out there who are listening to my voice, and when I say atheists, that means people who don't have a belief in a God, no matter what you identify yourself as. I think those of you who didn't vote did this country and yourself wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And this is partially your fault. And we need to call you out on your crap. We who voted need to not allow people not to vote without giving them grief about it. It's the time when we atheists, you know what we did this year? For this election, guess what? We're 20% of the population, 26% of the population, 27% of the population, and 12% of the people who voted. Mm-hmm. So we underperformed our own vote. And so I think that one of the things that we need to do moving forward is actively shame non-voters. Actively shame non-voters. It can no longer be acceptable for people to say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, I'm not going to do it. No, F you, you're going to do it. You're getting in my car, we're going to vote. You are voting, you are a citizen. Your vote affects me. Your lack of vote affects me. It is my business. if atheists don't vote. Every atheist out there who didn't vote, that's my business now, because we have this corrupt politician because we atheists didn't vote, and we atheists tolerated people not voting. And I think that has to be done, because this is something that, I mean,